Hello, welcome to the conclusion of our little lesson. I'm Nathaniel Sable, at the end as Nate Sable, and here's where we're going to summarize what we've learned so far. So to review, we've gone over kinematics equations. You've seen 0th order, 1st order, and 2nd order. You've seen why these work and why certain chemicals will not be needed for the reaction and will always be in excess, why certain amounts will act as different factors and different amounts to require different powers, and how a lot of those ODE functions are similar, but the slight changes can affect the actual equation and the actual pattern of the data a great deal. We also saw how these kinematics functions are usually shown in their ODE forms, and these ODE forms, they're just the equation for the slope generally at any given point. And to solve those, that's what you actually have to do to find the concentration or the action of almost anything in the kinematic equation. So we've seen tools, we've seen several MATLAB methods to do that. And those MATLAB methods are typically the symbolic toolbox, where we learned how to plug in our ODE equation with the right variables and have it be solved automatically so we could see the equation. The Eulers method, which just spat out a theoretical curve of what the data was going to look like over time, and ODE 45, which again, neither of the last two gave us the full equation, but they gave us the data very accurately, and it was quick to put in the ODE. And we also, throughout all this, we focused on chlorine decay. We got to see a few different case studies that went over it, and we saw how it's mostly in 1st order. It breaks down at that rate. It only really cares about the chlorine concentration, and that chlorine concentration is directly related to the constant of how fast it breaks down. It's also essential for water safety because natural organic matter is everywhere. We are technically natural organic matter, but in the water systems, when it has bacteria or viruses, it's something that we have to be cautious about and something that must be deactivated in order for humans to remain safe. It also tastes terrible to anyone who's tried going to the pool. It's not a taste you like. It doesn't seem healthy when you taste it in your water. So we need to strike a delicate balance of having enough chlorine to kill all the NOMs, natural organic matter again, and not having too much that we taste it and it tastes disgusting. So somewhere in that range. And for that reason, we've spent so much time modeling it. We've seen practices of a lot of different groups that have been trying to get the correct model in perfect situations in different metal pipes when dealing with biofilms, which just natural organic matter is deactivated, builds up, and becomes a high for organic matter again. That's something we have to deal with, something we have to calculate for, and something we have to be precise for so that the water can stay right within that sweet spot of protecting people and also not harming them. Or why did I say not harming them? Between protecting them and protecting their taste buds, I guess. So here is going to be our final model of the system. It's going to be based off of modeling chlorine in decay drinking water supply systems using EPNet MSX, which you'll remember is the article that I used in the last video I created. It was last minute and I wasn't able to communicate with many people. So we're going to create a model of the overall decay rate for their 1st order model, their nth order model, and their 2nd order model. The nth order model, they end up doing a 1.2 order because they felt that would be the best fit. So for their 1.2, the constant was predictably closer to the 1st order. And we're going to see how we would make that work. So for this one, we're doing Euler's method because that will just be easier to deal with strange changes. And in case you forgot, the way Euler's method works is first you define your variable, and for best practices, you will create an array of zeros for it. This isn't technically necessary, but it is best practice just because some systems will not allow you to add in values beyond the points where you're allowed to add them. And also sometimes it just takes up more data and makes your code less efficient. After that, we establish our starting point. At the first index of those zeros, we replace it with 10. We set up our value, and we also set up our time step. You have to be very careful about this because what we're doing requires you to be very precise about how limited your time step is. So the way Euler's method works is, well, you want to find the value of the concentration at some time. So to do that, you look at what was a concentration at the time previously, and then you modify it with what is our ODE equation here. 1 times the previous y value to the first power. This is our first order ODE equation. And then multiply it by the time step. And remember, our ODE equation is the slope. It goes from this point to this point. It won't actually tell us it's at either of these points. It'll just say, from your previous point, according to the ODE, you'll go with this slope. And what Euler's method basically does is say, I want to go over this time step for it, so I will follow the slope to here. Then rechecks, the slope is this way, same time step, and goes over there. And in that method, it can create a curve if you use small enough time steps. And to do that curve and repetition, we use this for loop. It basically establishes I as an intermediate variable that will run between 2 and 100. So it'll start by looking for the second value and will not stop until the 100th value has been calculated from all the previous values. And here is where we apply that. You can do it all at once pretty easily. Just put in the same I, run through the same things, have all the variables you need, and then plot it into this graph. And here we can very clearly see that these curves are all different. The nth order was chosen as one that can be very close to it, but as we can see, the first order, the one that matches well with the chlorine decay, that one is very different. So it just helps show that the importance of choosing the right one, and also why they tested out different ones for their variety to see if any of the other ones fit. Because for those of you who watched will remember, they had a bit of a biofilm problem that affected their data. And so they experimented, they tried different methods, and they got to work. So closing thoughts. These lessons, while they may have seemed a little bit dull at times, it's important work. Just going through all these steps, relearning them and reviewing them, it'll do you good in the future when you're trying to model these yourself. After all, you need to know the math before getting out the fun. So, good luck on your quiz. The link is in the description as well as the citation for the article used. So, have a great day.